a soldier, an airman, and a Marine walk into a room. This show is The Punchline. My name is Ryan Smeltz, and you're watching Veteran Talk Show.
Girls like guys that completely.
That's why I learned Dave Matthews and John Mayer.
So
You could play everyone. When I learned to play Crash Into Me, that was like my panty dropper song.
So from when I was 3 to 11, I had lessons.
I didn't have any lessons.
I've been playing guitar since I was 3 years old, and I quit. I could read music. You could open a book. I play the song. I had no idea what I had, and I was just like, one day, Mom was like, "Well, you know, if you don't want to play guitar anymore, you don't have to. You can just quit." And that was the first time I was told that there was an alternative. Yeah. So I was like, cool.
I
quit. Like that's all it took. So when I turned 14, I went to public school and I realized that girls liked it. I picked it back up and I was like, y'all got them lessons, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, no.
I picked it up when I first picked up the guitar when I was like in middle school for like a summer. And then I didn't pick it up again until like, I didn't actually start playing until I was like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
And that's when I would like sit down and read tabs.
Yeah.
And just like blare the music. Like my roommate in college hated it. He was like, "Oh my God, dude, you fucking suck."
It was so great though. Like if you had tabs and a stereo,
that's all I did.
Anything.
That's all I did. Like I would sit there and I'd be like, okay. And then like,
you're playing it and some other asshole wrote the tabs and you're like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And then you're playing it and you're like, all right, I figured it out.
Yeah.
You print them off so you can scribble it out and fix it.
And then I would do that. And then I left for the Marines and I stopped playing. And then I picked it up again. Kind of when I lived in Denver a little bit with some friends, and then in Louisiana, I was like, all right, I'm going to devote X amount of time every week to playing guitar.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like too ADD to like learn anything new.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, fuck it.
I don't really like lead style stuff, you know.
No.
It's all right and the picking stuff is okay, but I gotta be honest with you. I feel like I get judged a lot for the type of music I like, but it's because like
everybody gets judged for the music they like, and I like everything.
Yeah,
like believe me, if I could pick up and play whatever the fuck I wanted to play, I would.
Yeah, but like I like stuff that has that acoustic riff.
Yeah,
whether it's all the way through or just at the beginning. And so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna learn to play that, and they're like, oh, you like I'm trying to think of a really shitty band, but
you were just playing Oasis, so we'll give you that one.
Fair enough. I really wasn't, but fair enough. So yeah. Oh, you like Oasis?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, I mean, I play it. So to play it, I have to listen to it.
Yeah.
And I do like that sound. I like duplicating that sound. Like it's something.
I've got a whole playlist on Spotify that is just music I've either learned or want to learn.
Yeah.
Like it's called Guitar Learn.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just different things I've either learned in the past that I just play with to like, just to keep in sync with, or it's stuff that I'm like, yes, I really want to learn to play this song.
Yeah.
And I just have never, because maybe it's too technical. Like Fleetwood Mac has Never Going Back Again. Because that's really heavy finger picking, and I'm really terrible at that shit. Yeah. But like, still, I'm like, I want to learn that fucking song.
Yeah.
And there's other stuff on there that I like, Foo Fighters that I've learned, and Green Day, and it's all done acoustically. I don't really play the electric.
Yeah,
I've never really played electric.
So I think as far as electric, I'm more of a fan when like I have effects pedals and. You know, or maybe an audience. And I mean like on stage in front of an audience, but
I don't like playing in front of people.
My favorite thing about the acoustic guitar is you can pick that shit up and play it wherever the fuck you are.
This is my room to play guitar.
You don't need an amp.
I don't. My wife loves it. She's like, you should pick it. Like, cause she likes listening to me play guitar, and she's like, play it. Like, she'll come bring her sewing stuff in here and I'll sit on the couch and she'll like bring her sewing table in here and she'll sew and I'll play and she's like, keep playing. It's nice. I like it. And I'm like, oh, you're just, you got to say that because you're my wife.
Yeah, you're obligated.
You're obligated. But like, other than that, I hate playing in front of people. I really do. I don't think I've never been the guy who's like, I'm going to be up on stage. I'm going to be that. No, like
I've never wanted to be that famous, but I did open mics. And in fact, there was an ice cream shop. It was very similar to like Marble Slab down in Leesville, Louisiana. It wasn't Marble Slab. It was close to it. And I went in there and I asked the owners if I could play guitar in there and put up a tip jar. And they were like, sure. What kind of music do you play? Can we hear a sample? I recorded myself onto a CD. And back then, especially right when I joined the Army, because growing up, I was in church if the doors were open. So it was a lot of praise and worship. Yeah. There was a lot of popular Christian music. So it was easy. And I was like, oh, this is the type of music I play. And they were like, oh, cool. That's the type of music that we play. So sure, you can play. Put up a tip jar, not making a shit ton, but it was fun. Got to play in front of some people. And now I just feel like it would be a headache. Like, wear your mask, but they can't hear me.
Yeah, no, I can't. There. I can't. Well, first of all, I'm tone deaf. I can't sing.
Oh, okay.
Like I can do Frank Sinatra and Johnny Cash all day because I got that like deep baritone. Yeah. Anything outside of that, I'm like, nope. Like my wife loves karaoke. Now my wife's got a beautiful singing voice. Like when I tell people I married Mary Poppins, it's true. I married Mary Poppins.
When I was in Iraq, I found a lieutenant and I played "Kiss Me." And she knew it. She was pretty good at singing. So
Kiss me, and I'm really trying. Yeah.
So I played.
That's
Kiss
90s
me.
For you.
I gotta find that video. Somebody has it, but I played "Kiss Me" and she sang it. So you should play and have your wife sing.
My wife used to teach orchestra way back when. Like her violin's in the closet. I'm like, you should restring that and pick it up. She's like, I have not played my violin in almost 30 years.
She should though, because that's like a band waiting to happen.
Yeah, well, when we first moved in, we would try and do like bluegrass stuff together. But she was way better than I was. And she was just like,
she's like, can you
pick up the tempo a little bit? Like you're playing the C wrong or whatever. She's like, and she knows a lot more about, like, I know nothing about theory.
Yeah.
Nothing about theory.
Yeah.
Like I am the quintessential campfire guitarist. Like strum. Oh, I missed that. Hold on. Let me stop. Let me go back.
What is that movie? That's got Paul Rudd. They go Role Models.
Oh, where they trip Ambien?
And there's that one guy.
Yeah, that's me.
And he's trying to play
he's trying to play something.
What is that? Let's say Saving Grace. And that they were using that stereotypical song.
Yeah. The only thing that was ever funny that we did was I got really shit-faced when I was in Denver with my neighbor and we were watching Family Guy. And it was the one where Stewie fell in love with the neighbor girl, like there was a new girl who moved in the street. And they ended up being like a show couple together or whatever, but he's trying to write her a love song. And so he's like, this is my G chord, build my house with my G chord. So that whole sort of, like, me and my buddy were shit-faced and we were listening to that. I was like, he's telling us the chord progression. And then like Brian comes in, it's like where he's like, this is my G chord. And he's like, I'm gonna go. And I'm trying to remember the whole thing. It's fucking hilarious. He's like, let me go to my D chord. Yeah, everything looking nice out here. And then, but what's this? We got some weather, so I'm gonna go to my A minor. And he's like, and Brian comes in, he's like, you sound like an incredible douche. And then he sings this song. He's like, and then Brian comes in, and I was like, my buddy and I sat down. We were watching that. And we were shit faced. We're like, we know this song. Like, we can pick up our guitars right now. And we did. And we played that song for like right then and there. And I was like, this is probably the funniest thing I've ever done.
That's funny.
Like that was like probably the first time I ever picked up a guitar without like looking at a tab and being like, okay, he's going G, C, G, D, A minor, E, A minor, E. I was like, okay, cool, done.
And the lyrics were just him.
Yeah, and then Brian comes in and he changes the tempo. Brian comes in and he changes the song. And we sung it like people would laugh hysterically, like we would do it like randomly.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
There was down at Fort Polk, I told you my first roommate, Blake Good, and me and him play guitar. And he I can't remember what it was. He saw a video or we knew somebody or something like that. Might have been a Tenacious D thing where they follow people around and they play the guitar.
Yeah.
That sounds like something Jack Black would do, but so he started doing it. He would just strap the guitar in the barracks and follow people around and play a song and play like this riff.
I love Tenacious D.
And be like, yeah.
I miss the Tenacious D show. I have HBO Max. I'm going to have to watch it again. It's been years since I've seen it.
So I didn't know anything about it till I met him. And then
Dude, Tenacious D, like I had that CD when I was like in high school.
I know very little about Tenacious D.
Oh my God. Have you never seen the original show?
Nope. I know they sang the greatest song ever.
Yeah. This is the greatest and best song. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah.
That's probably one of the
Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy's a great song. Wonder Boy. What is the secret? I know how to play Wonder Boy on guitar.
Because I feel like I saw maybe like the music video of.
Well, so the whole thing was like, yeah, they would always start at this open mic night, and they would like end up making a video based on what they were playing at open mic night, and that's how they created their first. That's how they created their first album.
But Jack Black was like, you know,
it was Jack Black and Kyle. I can't remember Kyle's last name.
That's what I was going to say, because just like Jack Black went on to do some shit. And the other guy was just kind of in the background the whole time.
So the other guy's like more of a actual musician.
Okay.
Like Jack Black's like, the Kyle guy's actually like a really, really great guitarist.
Yeah.
Like really knows his shit. I mean, I think he's been in bands and done a bunch. So the drummer in the tribute song, the best song of the world, whatever, the greatest song ever written, the drummer is the guy from Foo Fighters. Dave Grohl.
Oh,
yeah. He like produced that and like played drums for him in that. Nice. In the video, he's the devil in the music video.
Foo Fighters is good shit.
Yeah, Foo Fighters is awesome. So is Nirvana. Let's be real. If we're going to talk Dave Grohl and I mean,
yeah,
that's, music from my youth.
Nirvana, I feel like was me in high school with my guitar. So actually a buddy of mine that used to play bass, he would come over and we would play Nirvana. He ended up being like a fucking pilot. You ever go to school with that person and you're like, wow, they're going to be a pothead or whatever. Yeah, I was like,
I can think of
this guy is headed nowhere. My parents didn't like me hanging out with him.
Yeah.
He's a bad influence. He's older than you. This, that, and the third.
I was that kid for everybody. Like I was like, oh, you're hanging out with him. I had a guidance counselor once tell me I was going to end up dead or in jail. That was pretty much my options in life. And I was like, oh, yeah. Way to build up its young students.
Guidance counselor.
Way to guide. And now look at me, I'm successful and like, oh, okay.
I mean, I feel like the Marines is kind of like jail. They feed you. You get a car.
Kind of is like jail.
You can't.
There's a lot of barbed wire and concertina wire.
Yeah. Well, you get shot at. I would hope that people aren't getting shot at in jail.
I mean, they're getting stabbed. I don't know. I've never been to jail. I don't know what jail life is like.
So your guidance counselor was wrong.
Yeah. Since moving home, I've run into people that I've gone to high school with, and they're like, they'll see me and they'll be like, oh, you have tattoos, and like they kind of like start going towards. I was like, nope, got this when I was in the Marines.
Yeah.
Oh, you were a Marine? No, that makes sense. You know, what are you doing now? And I'm like, oh, I tell them. They're like, well, you're actually like successful. I'm like, yeah, own my own home, in a decent neighborhood.
Yeah,
have a good job, get paid a lot, like my work.
Not going to jail.
Yeah, not going to jail. Like a little more successful than you are. LOL. How those straight A's treating you now, bitch?
See you next week.
Yeah. There are other people I see from high school that I just flat out don't talk to.
Well,
because like, you know, where I'm from, it's like North Raleigh is very, I mean, Raleigh's grown up a lot since leaving, but North Raleigh is still like, you still will go to places and be like, you know, I went to high school with that motherfucker.
Yeah, I don't know anybody I went to school with. I mean, that the guy I hang out with.
Three of my best friends I had from high school.
Yeah.
That guy who just called me, who was this same dude who called me earlier, he really needs my truck, I think. It's like, hey, can you come over and help me out? I'm like godparent. I'm his kid's godfather. My wife's their godmother.
Nice.
And then my other buddy lives in Durham. We see them, and then my other best friend from high school lives in Charleston.
Yeah. I mean, then again, like you're here, so my hometown is like 45 minutes to an hour away. And even then, when I go back, I feel like I get cold shouldered a lot. I think it's because I left as soon as I graduated.
Well, I did too, but when I came home and visited, so I left Raleigh at 18.
Yeah.
And I was like, done. But every time I come back to visit, we would always see each other and get together for drinks and whatnot. And then since moving back, like almost 2 years ago now, like we see each other, like my best friend, I mean, we see each other once a week. We usually do Friday fun day after work. And we usually go over to his house, hang out, we have dinner, hang out with the kids. If it's nice out, you know, sit out in the yard and barbecue and shit.
Fuck yeah. Need to get my charcoal going again. I like grilling out.
I'm grilling out this afternoon.
Feel like
grilling out in a few hours.
Yeah.
But that's for family.
Yeah.
Mom, dad, sister.
It's nice out to be able to do that right now. It's
well, yeah, considering it's the first time we've seen the fucking sun in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like it's been raining a lot here lately.
This is the wettest February I've ever seen.
Lord. And it was so cold yesterday, dude.
Dude, it was cold this week.
Yeah.
And I work outside.
Well, it's a little by choice, is it not?
Yeah, it's definitely by choice. I love working outside though. You know, I love being outside and doing what I do. Especially as like as a member of like management. Like I'm not just like a laborer.
Yeah.
Like I run an outdoor lumber hardware yard construction supply company.
So I don't know if you can get into it, but do they like make anything on site?
Mm-hmm. We got a carpentry shop on site.
Okay.
Do a lot of door milling, a lot of custom doors, but people will bring in and be like, oh, I want to build this, whatever, to our carpentry shop. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. Here's how much it'll cost. And they're like, do it. We let people who bring, like, we had one customer who's got like an old house from like the 1800s, like old. Okay. He's like, my garage doors, and they're the old ones that it's not like a roll up garage door. It's one of those ones you open. Like you have to get out and open it. And he's like, these things are just rotted and nasty, and I'd like to repair them because they, you know, fit with the rest of the house and blah, blah, blah. And my carpenter's like, I mean, if you want to pay the money to get them fixed up, we'll fix them for you. But I mean, it costs you just as much to just get a new door.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, this is what I want to do. And they're like, all right, cool. So we've got a whole carpentry shop in there. We do custom windows, custom doors. We have a hardware store. We have lumber. We do a lot of lumber work, framing, decking. We distribute to construction sites all over the area. It's a great company to work for.
I wonder, so
it's a family-owned business, which I really love.
If they distribute to like construction sites, I wonder if they know, do they work a lot with general contractors?
Yeah. Yeah, they do a lot of work with general contractors, New Fire, Bold, where they like people go in and like, this is the house I want to build. Here's my property. And these contractors be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Got it.
And
then they do like renovations, contractors who are just like small time. And we're going to flip a home.
That's cool.
So we deliver to those sites as well. We deliver to like big, our biggest project right now that we're working with is a new like townhome complex in Cary. So we deliver doors and windows to them when they need them.
So I feel like one thing that led you to this position is your experience down in New Orleans, no?
Yeah. It's all distribution. It's just now I'm distributing essentially construction supplies and products for construction other than booze. New Orleans, I was doing booze.
Right.
But still the same foundation.
The facility here is smaller now?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I feel like you said, what, 350,000 square feet in New Orleans?
Yeah, like 350, 300, something like that.
Okay.
It was huge. I mean, I had 18,000 plus SKUs in that warehouse.
Yeah, I can't even begin to imagine that.
Yeah, we had more SKUs, more customers. So I would do, I think in New Orleans we had like, I'm trying to remember because it was a few years ago now. We had, I want to say 60 something trucks. No, 30 something trucks. Denver was 60. We had 30 something trucks in just New Orleans. And those trucks would go out with 500 cases on them, 500 cases of booze, and they'd go deliver to 40 something customers in a day.
So down there, were you involved in the hiring and firing process?
Yeah, well, yeah, down there was a union, so it was a little bit different.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know they had unions in Louisiana.
Yeah, they had a union.
So what did because I think what I'm getting at is like I feel like my brother struggles with it a little bit. And I know a lot about, just in the past few years, like interview processes and how
everybody does them differently.
For me, it's more beneficial. And I feel like for companies, when the decision-making or responsibility is either shared or passed off. So I think what my brother struggles with a lot is the fact that he owns the company.
Yeah.
So he has carte blanche. So he'll talk to somebody one time and then want to make a decision. And it's not even during the conversation, but it's like, I feel like if he were to create like a filter there.
It depends on the position you're hiring for, what it is, right? Like I'm going to take much longer to hire a manager or a supervisor than I am going to be some kind of laborer or warehouse worker.
Sure.
Right. That process looks a lot different.
Oh,
I mean, it just depends on, like, if I'm going to hire a manager who I'm going to manage, who I'm going to expect to manage other people, it's going to be much more of a process.
No,
I'm essentially going to phone interview 20 people, or however much I have. I'm going to take a pool. I'm going to phone interview as many of them as I can. And then I'm going to start to narrow it down. And then I'm going to get other people's input. And I'm going to say, okay, what other tools do I have in my belt to make sure I find the right manager that fits in with the company I'm working for and what it is we want and who we are as a company. And so what tools in my belt do I have? So, I'm going to do the phone interview process. Once I find the phone interview process, I may bring them in for a face-to-face with just me and then narrow that pool down to say, okay, now I'm going to bring you back for a second face-to-face or virtual now because of COVID. But,
sure.
We're going to do something where it's face-to-face, but now I'm going to get more people involved.
Yeah.
Like, I like you, you've passed this kind of next level, but now I'm going to get your peers, some of your peers involved and some of my management involved.
Yeah.
Because we all need to work together. Yes, it is a, tiered system and we've got to listen to the boss man, but you also have to have a working relationship with them. You have to have a working relationship with me, and you have to have a working relationship with the people who are across the organization with you. So for management, for me, it's much different.
Do you feel like, because it sounds like you got a lot of experience in this realm, do you feel like at this point you can smell people's bullshit?
It's very hard.
Yeah.
It is. And the market ebbs and flows. It depends on where unemployment is. The company I'm working for now, and this is actually a great story. They are a company of tenure, so they don't have a lot of turnover in their company. I mean, there are people who worked at this company for 40 plus years, and it's a small company.
Huh.
So like they're not used to a lot of turnover. Right now we're hiring positions. So the last time they hired someone was years and years ago. And so you bring these people in for interviews, and these are, this is just not for management. This is just for hourly positions throughout the organization.
Yeah.
And there is so much unemployment that you're kind of getting inundated with a lot of resume. I mean, it's a lot to go through. I mean, there's just a lot to suss out and kind of say, okay. And then based on what you're looking at, you've got to kind of say, okay, I need to talk to these people. And it's, however your company, and every company is different. It's, organic culture is much different. And so you've kind of got to suss out. And if you're trying to make something quickly, people can easily fool you. Like I most recently had someone who came in who we really loved in the interview process, came in well-dressed, well-spoken, just kind of blew everybody away, talked to him and was like, this is our guy. And then was there for a day, maybe two, and then just vanished. And for me, I'm used to that working for large organizations that I've worked for.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is kind of how the market is and the culture is now, that you've kind of got to you've got to put that in the back of your, where these guys, the company I'm working for,
where like he found another position,
he just didn't realize, he just kind of was like, oh, this isn't for me, because there's a new generation coming into the workforce, and you've kind of got to understand that you're like what you're used to, or what your bosses are used to, or people who've worked for 20 years or 30 years or 40 or however long, may not realize that there's a new, what the new generation of the workforce looks like and how they think and how they operate.
Yeah.
And, it's very hard to kind of judge someone off of one or two meetings.
Yeah.
They can blow you away. I mean, they can, and you can bring them on and then realize, maybe not everything he told us or put on his resume or application or whatever is correct, and maybe he lied. And a lot of people do lie to make themselves look, I mean, everybody does, to make themselves look better.
Yeah. I saw that I put it on the internet the other day. It was like an old Vietnam era soldier given a dog, like a golden retriever, a rifle, while he had a helmet on, and it said, when you lie on your resume, but you still get the job.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. I mean, people, I don't want to say lie. Lie is such a kind of hard, they embellish certain facts. You may have done something where you increase productivity by 3%. You may go, well, I'm going to just round that up to 5, because 5% sounds a lot better than 3%.
Right.
Or I'm going to, it's silly things like that. And you never really truly know someone in an interview process. I mean, you kind of get these snapshots of them. And it doesn't matter how big your interview process is, but I think the more people that are involved in an interview process is a good idea. Yeah. Because that way like, let's say you and I are business partners, you hire someone or you look at someone like, I think this guy or girl is perfect. And then I sit down and talk to them. I'm like, well, not really. Like, here's my flaws, here are my red flags, or here's whatever. Maybe you have, they call it the halo effect in hiring. There's an actual term for it. It's called the halo effect, where you bring someone in and you're like, I found this person looks amazing. And you go to another person.
They look like an angel.
Yeah. It's called the halo effect. Okay. And you're like, oh, this person is awesome. It's great because I found them. And you have that bias to be like, I've put all this work in to find this person. Here's the person. And so you kind of just instinctively, without even recognizing you're doing it, kind of turn off all these red flags or a red flag or whatever, like big things that you don't want to see because you're like, yeah. All right. And then maybe they have to go to another person in your organization and do an interview. And that person's like, hey, yeah, he does sound pretty good, or she does sound pretty good, but there's this one thing that I don't think is and it's a big thing that I don't think is going to fit with us.
Yeah.
And then you can have that conversation. Interviewing is very difficult. I mean, it's as much of an art as it is a science. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do, and you've got to understand what your organization is, what your culture is, and what it is you're looking for.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that for someone I'm paying $15 an hour for. I'm not going to make them go through 30 rounds of interviews. If I'm paying you six figures, yeah, you better be fucking ready to sit down and talk. Like,
so I guess my question might center more around like retention. In the military, it was pretty much,
retention comes into, it's not just the person you hire. It's also what you are doing as an organization.
Yeah.
It's not just the person you bring on, but it's what are you doing? Right? Are you properly training? Are you, are you just kind of throwing them into the deep end and say, figure it the fuck out? Is there good work-life balance? There's a lot of different things that you have to look at for retention. Retention and hiring are two totally different things in my book.
Yeah.
Like, once you find someone you can feel like you fit, you need to kind of figure out what it is you're then making them go through for training and for, how they're going to fit into the organization. Are they going to feel like they are a part of the organization, that they make an impact on that organization? I used to have a boss who used to tell me, and well, he would tell everybody, not just me, but he would say, the antidote he would always give is a CEO and a CFO are sitting at a bar and they're just talking shop. And the CFO goes, hey, wanted to bring this up. We're spending all this money on training. What happens if we spend all this money on training these new people and they decide to leave?
Yeah.
And the CEO's response is, what happens if we don't spend this money on training and they decide to stay?
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the mentality. That's what I think makes a good organization is, I want to set you up for success within my organization, but I also want to set you up for success so that if you do decide to go somewhere else, my organization's name is still attached to you. And they look at me as hot shit because I trained you and I did all of these things to make you the person you are. And my hope is that in doing that, you're going to feel ownership and wanting to stay. But at the same time, I'm not going to stand in the way of your personal goals.
Yeah.
I might not be able to promote you or pay you or whatever to fit you into my organization. But if that's what you want, I'm the only chief operating officer. And if that's your career goal is to be a chief operating officer, you're going to compete against me.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stand in your way to be a chief operating. So I'm going to give you, the employee, the tools and the knowledge to go be a successful chief operating officer. So if you do stay around long enough and I retire, you can be next in line. Or if someone else comes along and recruits you, you can go off and do your goal. This whole idea of like, I'm going to, as a boss, give you the tools to just do your job, I think is wrong. You need to talk to people as individuals within your organization and in your team and say, what do you want out of life? What do you want out of your career goals? Let me help you get there.
I think it's I think what you just said is super important as it relates to, pretty much every industry and any organization, because too many times I've talked to business owners. I mean, dude, I talked to a business owner down in Sanford, and I walked in, and he had nobody in there. I'm down. I'll try one of those. So he had nobody in there, and I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I'm answering the phone, so and so they quit, so and so I had to fire them, this, that, and the third, and this other person is part time, and he had nobody." And it was like, "All right, cool, he's running a business, he has nobody, no big deal, whatever. He's answering the phone." So I come back, and this was when I was in B2B sales. So I come back, and the office is full. He's got one guy on the couch, doing whatever, and another lady being trained by the part-time lady who I had kind of made friends with. She was kind of cool, selling raffle tickets and telling me about the company, whatever. And so I come in, and I'm like, all right, now he's got help, and he's got his office, and the things are running. And one thing I noticed is when he came out, he looked down at the one guy that was sitting on the futon. And, some people, especially if they're like an hourly employee, and they might require like high direction, go do this, go do that, whatever, especially during the training phase. And we're not talking about an extended period of time. So this kid couldn't have worked there maybe a week is my guess. And he goes, "Hey, you going to go get to work, or are you going to soak up the air conditioning?" And the next time I come back, the office was empty again, and he was in the same situation that he was in the first time I had met him. So at face value, with one person and not retaining that employee, I would say, all right, well, that's an employee thing. But
it could be an employee thing, but it also could be an organizational.
Yeah.
What are you doing in that initial? So for me, what I have seen in my experience, and I take this from my last two companies, not my current one. The first company I got started with after college is probably one of the best companies, and I really wish I could still be working for them. I really do. They were a big, huge corporate company, but they were a great company because they did things that. So they put you through, especially if you're a management, they put you through a lot of training, but they also went through this process of like reviewing and having this open and honest conversation every so often within the first 180 days of you working, especially as a manager. All right. So, here's your 30-day review. And it's not like a review as you're doing this wrong, you're doing this right, this is what you need to move to, or blah, blah, blah. It is this conversation of going, okay, in your first 30 days, what do you feel like you've learned? What processes do you see that you've learned? What have you done? And blah, blah. And it's more of a one-on-one conversation. And you have a mentor who is sitting down with you going through, this is what is successful here. This is what, and so they set up all of these tools to make you be successful. Now you've got to use the tools. They're not just going to give them to you, but you as the person in that training world have to utilize them. So they do they do that kind of stuff. The last company I worked for that, was not that great of a company, in my opinion, did not do that. They basically hired you, gave you a week of, they gave me a week of training.
Okay. So this wasn't the people you work for now. It wasn't the the ones in New Orleans. This was just some interim job that
this
you
was
had.
why. So I left that company in New Orleans because I wanted to move home.
Of course.
I wanted to be closer to family. So in the industry I was working at,
you or your wife,
both of us. I mean, it was she was the one who started convincing.
I just
all of my friends and family.
I vaguely remember you saying something about her saying something, and then them.
Oh, she got all of my friends and family on board.
They said,
yeah, she was like, I really want to move back to North Carolina, but I can't be the one. But no, I was missing out on a lot. I mean, so in the alcohol world, October, November, December is your busiest time. It is. And so you don't get vacation time. So you don't get, I mean, you get like Thanksgiving Day off, you get Christmas Day off, you get New Year's Day off.
But that day,
but you get that day
back to work.
And then it's back to work. There's no vacation.
No.
Because that's your busiest time. And I think I've been working for 2 different alcohol companies. That's how it is. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is one of the biggest drinking holidays in the country.
Right.
So, I mean, that's where you're making your money. And so no one's allowed to really take vacation. And so if you're working in a company that you maybe, like for me, I left Colorado and moved to New Orleans where I had no family, no friends, didn't know anyone. And I moved for this company to take this job, which was great. I still couldn't go and travel during the big holidays. Right. I still, I didn't have friends that I could celebrate the holidays with. Like, because in Denver, I had a tight group of friends and we were really close and we would do Friendsgiving because we all worked in the hospitality world and had built that over the years of living in Denver. In New Orleans, we didn't have that. So it was like you get Thanksgiving Day off and it was just kind of like me and my wife. And everyone else I had was working with was like, oh, my mom and dad live down the street or whatever. And so that kind of made us feel very homesick.
Yeah.
And so after 3 years, or after the 2 years, we started going, okay, we need to figure out how to go somewhere else. And for the first little bit of that, we were like, I really wanted to stay with the company. So let me try and apply to different positions, but positions just were not opening.
No.
As a lateral move, not even as a promotion, but as a lateral. There were so few of us.
Huh.
And we came home on a vacation in the middle of summer and my wife was like calling all of my friends and was like, you have to convince him to move home. And because I was at that point in New Orleans, like since we didn't have a big group of friends, I was just throwing myself into work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was working 14-hour days. Like it was nothing.
Golly, man.
Well, I was doing that because I was like, well, I don't really have a social life. Like I've got like 1 or 2 friends, but like I don't have like a tight knit group of people because I don't know anyone here.
Yeah.
So I would just kind of focus on throwing myself into work. And so we came home for a week and everyone showed me a really good time and what I was missing and blah, blah, blah. And I was missing out on a lot of family stuff. My parents are getting older, my niece and nephew are growing up and they were the ones that did it for me to move back to North Carolina. Cause I remember I saw them and they were very young children. They were like, oh, this is your Uncle Joe. And they were like, who? Oh, he has a face. And I would have to like talk in a recorder and then like play it for them. They'd be like, oh, I know who you are. Cause I talked to you on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, but they had no clue who I was. And I was like, oh, that's a shitty feeling.
Yeah.
So, it was a tough decision to make. And if that company that I worked for in New Orleans existed here in North Carolina, I would have taken a demotion to move here or Virginia or South Carolina, but those jobs just weren't opening up. So I found a company that was similar on a smaller scale and I took it. They had a job and I took it and it was not a good move. I mean, it got me home.
Yeah.
So that was the plus side, but it was a terrible company to work for.
Were you were you with them until COVID? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it just like a downsizing thing?
Yeah. Yes and no.
You don't have to go into detail, but I was just curious.
Yeah, it wasn't. So here's the thing. All right. They were a small company. They're only in this state. They don't exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
But how they got rid of me, how they laid me off or fired me, if you will, was they basically wrote up a document that said I was doing all these things wrong and that I wasn't a good employee. So it's called a PIP. That's what the corporate world calls it. Is a PIP. Personal instruction. I don't know what PIP stands for, but it's basically at my level, it's basically a document that says we're about to fire you. This is just covering our ass so we don't have to pay for unemployment. And when they gave me that at the end of that conversation, first of all, I argued everything in it. And I was like, well, this is bullshit. And here's the story. This is not true. This is just flat out not true. I have emails that says this point in this document, you guys told me not to do, but you're telling me I should have done it here. It's, it sounds bitter now, but it is what it is. But at the end of that conversation, both the HR and my boss looked at me and was like, if you need a recommendation for a next job, we'll give it to you. And I was like, first of all, you're telling me I'm doing all these things wrong and I'm a terrible person. And at the end of the conversation, you're offering to give me a recommendation? Like, like this is just so that you're ensuring that I can apply for unemployment. Because that's what it is. Because if I would have gone and filed for unemployment would have gone to them and said, you have to sign off on this. And they could have said, nope, we have this documentation. He doesn't bring unemployment.
Yeah. And that
was them covering their ass.
I mean, that's across the board. It's not in that form, but that's across the board.
You have documentation. And if you have documentation, and I get it. And, so I understand why they did what they did.
Yeah.
I just disagree with it because, I was like, you could have just said, hey guys,
if you can't afford to keep me on, then just tell me
I'm not going to go file for unemployment. And I didn't file for unemployment. Yeah. So I went 6 months living off of my savings.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wasn't going to go file for unemployment anyways. And I saw the writing on the wall. I knew what was happening. I was like, I remember it was like a week or two before they did this. I went to Buffalo where my wife's family lives. We drove up to Buffalo for a week. I took a week vacation and I went up to Buffalo to see them. And I remember going up and I'm being like, I'm about to get fired. Like they're about to lay me off or fire me. That is literally going to happen. And it was like a week later they did it. And I was like, I knew this was like, the writing was there. It was on the wall. Yeah. I mean, I could have stayed after they gave me that document. I chose to leave when they gave that to me. Right? I chose to say, I'm leaving. Like, I'm not sticking around. Obviously, you guys want me gone. Let me save you the fucking headache.
Yeah.
Here are my keys. Here's my card. I'm leaving. I left. Like, at the end of that meeting, I left.
Yeah.
So technically it was job abandonment, so I wouldn't have been able to file for unemployment anyways. But it was such a bad company to work for in the fact that the politics there, everyone was very me. In a sense that I'm doing my job and if it was very finger pointing, right? This is my department. This is what I'm doing. I did my side of the deal. The rest is on you. There's no cross communication to make you sure you work as a team. There's no training. They literally, my training was they stuck me for a week with a guy who 2 weeks after I got hired, retired. And they were like, he's going to train you. And there was no training. Like that was it. They were just like, you worked for a big, huge company. You should have all this experience. And I'm like, well, I don't know your culture. I don't know your systems.
Yeah.
I have a foundation, but I don't know any of the nuances that your company has.
So the reason that I'm interested in all this is because I feel like you have strengths where I have weaknesses, which is essentially if I feel like a lot of times when I get fired, it's because or
You've been fired a lot?
I've probably quit and been fired an equal number of times since I've gotten out of the Army. Primarily because I feel like where I come in and I feel something is, I'll give you an example. A company I worked for in sales, they were doing everything manually. By manually, I mean pen and paper.
Right.
So you would have to physically drive out to the job, write all the shit down, go back to the office, do the calculations and the quote, and call the customer. And I was like, there's tons of better ways. There's tons of softwares. So I brought it up to the boss. He wasn't willing to pay it. I was like, all right, well, if I write something, I can use it, right? And he was like, well, I don't really care how you do it, just as long as it gets done. So they were doing 4 quotes a day, sometimes 3 on their existing process. So I got into spreadsheets and I learned JavaScript and wrote it on the back end and figured out how to take the numbers on site, punch it in my phone. And sometimes I still had to go back to the office because I'm not a software developer. I didn't know code until I learned it for this purpose. And even then it was very limited. So I would have hiccups, but when I got back, I would just, have a better internet, better computer connection, plug it in, and it would feed me all the numbers I needed for the estimate. So they were doing 3, maybe 4 estimates a day with their current sales guy. And I got to a point where I was doing 8 per day. So it's better, right? The thing I didn't like is sometimes I would wake up and have to go to that location. Sometimes that location, that one opened at 7, that one opened at 8. Sometimes I would use that company vehicle. Sometimes I would use that company vehicle. Sometimes I would use my own vehicle. And I was like, all right, well, I'm obviously faster and more efficient. If I hold the same closing ratio as the other guy, I'm doing twice the numbers in the sales. I don't think I should have to wake up and wonder which location I'm going to. Tell me which one. If I'm taking my own car, that's fine. But I think if I'm taking my own car, I should be able to leave from the house. I shouldn't have to go to the office. The clock in was an app, so you can be wherever and clock in. So I'm like,
there are
all
also
right.
mileage apps that you can use.
Yeah.
And
so I show up at this location and he goes, oh, the company truck isn't available. You're going to have to use your own car. And I'm like, look, that's fine. But I'm kind of done with this whole guess where you're going and what vehicle you're taking. So fix it. And I got a call after my first quote to go home. And I said, well, that's fine, but I need to know what to expect. And then in the afternoon, I got a call where the GM was firing me while the owner was listening in on a 3-way call. Yeah. And I was trying to sell myself back into the position like, hey, I see where you guys are coming from, but you kind of tossed me around there. So the words they used was confrontation. I'm like, I might have gotten loud, but I didn't physically attack anyone. I don't cuss when I'm in a situation like that. And if I'm wrong, I completely understand, but I go to different locations and drive different vehicles. I'm just asking for a little consistency. And I think that's fair. And halfway through the conversation, I was like, why am I trying to talk myself back into a company I don't want to fucking work for?
Well, that's a big, so when you're looking for a job, right? So during my unemployment, from my last company to now, I applied for a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs I just flat out never even interviewed for. They just sent me that carte blanche. Thank you for submitting your resume email. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I interviewed for some. And there was a very big company that moved here in warehousing and distribution. that I actually interviewed for. And I realized very quickly in that interview. So when you're on the other side as the interviewee, I mean, you've got to have your own, what am I looking for out of a career? What do I want? Right? It doesn't need to be this whole, I just need to find a job and get paid. Like, that's fine if you absolutely need to do it. Like, you make the sacrifice and do it and get a paycheck going. But for your career, you've got to kind of sit down with yourself and say, okay, what are my goals? What are my ambitions? Where do I want to go in my career? What is it that I want to do? And then when you're going through, if you're not doing the entrepreneurship thing, you know, which is fine if that's what you want to do, because you may want something more stable, you need to sit down and say, okay, if I will go and work for a company because I have to, what do I want out of them? More than just a paycheck and benefits and PTO. If I could work for a company where money didn't matter, I could name my price, I could name my benefits, but I still had to go in and day out. What do I want? Where do I want that path to lead? What is at the end of that road? Some people, and this is fine for people who want this, who just want to make that paycheck and come and have the same thing day in and day out, where they're just like, I know what the day is going to bring. Nothing wrong with that. And if that's what you want, great, find a company that'll do that for you. If you want a company that says there's growth opportunity, but you'll have to move, or maybe you want to go and see the world. Like, you've got to sit down and say, what am I looking for as a potential job? What do I want out of a career? Because no one's going to be able to tell you that. The companies that you're going to interview, if they like you, they're going to sell themselves to you as much as you sell yourself to them. Right? That's part of that interview process. The interviewee is trying to prove, hey, I'm the person you want. And the company, and a good company, is trying to prove to the interviewee, I'm the company you want to come work for.
I'm glad you bring that up and put it that way, because I feel like a lot of times people don't realize.
Yeah, it is a symbiotic relationship. And if it's there's a company that I interviewed for, and it is a huge company. Huge. And I remember it was the first round of interviews. I remember going, this is not a company I want to work for. But it was all in one day. So I had 4 interviews in one day, all virtual. And I did the phone interview, and that went well. And I was like, okay, let me feel this out. But within the first 20 minutes of that first interview on my virtual interview, I very quickly realized this is not a company I want to work for. Don't want it. Like, for me, I'm more about people, and this company was trying to put, and I'm not going to say it because it's a big company.
Yeah, sure.
But they were just trying to put me as a formula and say, do you fit within our equation? To make money. And I was like, I do not want that. And I very quickly realized. And at that point, hindsight, I should have just looked at the guy and said, hey, look, I'm not going to go through the next 4 hours of this process. I'm going to save you and everybody a bunch of time. I don't want to work here. But the voice in my head was like, dude, you are fucking unemployed. You need a paycheck, and this is a good company that is going to pay you a fuck ton of money.
I mean, moving forward to see what comes next, I don't think you can fall for that. Like, that's a smart move.
Once that idea popped into my head that this is not a company I want to work for, I just stopped trying to sell myself. And I was just like, at that point, was just kind of like, yeah, okay. Like, let's go on to the next guy. Like, and I'm just kind of like, I don't even care anymore. Like, and, you know, hindsight, I should have just stopped the interview. I should have just said, hey, look, talking to you for this amount of time, I don't think this is a good fit. And I should have done that instead of waste their time as much as waste my own. But when you are interviewing, you interview and you are selling. Yes, you are selling yourself to get a job, But if you are trying to find a career, you need to find a company that's in line with your goals and that can help you accomplish your goals. And you have to know what your goals are.
Yeah.
You have to be able to sit down and say, okay, this is what I want out of my day-to-day work. This is what I want out of, my next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
And you also have to have realistic expectations.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get everything you want. You're not going to come into a job and be like, I want to get, $250,000 a year with 8 weeks of vacation as a brand new college graduate who's, been in the Army, Marines, Navy, whatever. You've got to have realistic expectations. So you've got to look and say, okay, what can this company do for me? And is it something I can do? Are they helping me as much as I'm helping them?
Yeah.
And if it's a one-way street, it's maybe not a company you want to go work for. If you're doing all the work and you're doing everything and they're just telling you, hey, you're walking up this street and there's no end in sight, maybe that's not a company you want to go work.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people have certain thoughts and expectations, especially from a benefit standpoint. I just saw something today on the internet where they're looking for a job with health benefits. And it's like, even if the company offers those, you're not going to get them on day one.
No, you don't
necessarily.
No company gives them to you on day one. Any company that gives them to you on day one is wrong. And that's a big red flag for me. That's actually the other thing was about that big company I was just telling you about. Day one, you got all of this shit out the gate. And I was like, if they're trying to sell that to you, they're selling that to you because they are just trying to fill bodies into the seat.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit about you.
Yeah.
Like if a company looks at me as like day one out of the gate, this is what you get. You get full benefits, full vacation, 401k, signing bonus, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you're being headhunted, it's a different story. But if you're just like going in and applying on something you see on their website or on Indeed, and they talk to you and that's what they say, for me, that's the first red flag. I'm like, you guys really need people. So why do you need people as badly as you do?
Oh.
Is your growth that much? Okay. But what's really going on here? Like, you're not going to give me a trial basis? Like, to see if we are, that's the important thing about the 90-day trial period, is that it's as much for the company to see if you work with them as you work with the company. And if it doesn't work out, fine, fucking move on.
Yeah. I've talked to many people who perceive health benefits as basically a necessity because, oh, what am I supposed to do for healthcare, this, that, and the third? And I'm like, I completely understand, but I've looked into individual healthcare.
It's expensive as shit.
Sure. It's more expensive than getting it through your workplace.
Yeah.
But it's still a feasible option.
It is.
So
and there's different things. You can join like co-op health insurance.
Yeah.
That's what, while I was unemployed, that's what my wife and I did. Was we found just it's like basically covers emergency. Like I can't go get a physical.
No.
But it covers emergency, which is what you really need. And that's fine. And it's a co-op.
No.
It's more of a like co-op type of insurance.
I think it's important though for people to know that there's options out there. I mean, especially with
don't fucking do Cobra. That shit is fucking stupid expensive. If anyone's like, oh, you should do Cobra, you just need to look at it and be like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not paying $7,500 fucking dollars for all this shit that I really don't need while I'm looking for a job.
Yeah.
It's fucking bullshit. And I don't care. Someone works for Cobra's like, no, you don't know what it. I'm like, no, I fucking care about the dollar package. I'm unemployed. I'm not paying that fucking money. I've got rent and bills and groceries.
Yeah.
There are other things other than Cobra that you can go do.
This is the Veteran Talk Show. If you or someone you love is suffering as a victim of sexual harassment, sexual assault, needs help with addiction and recovery, or mental health and well-being, then please go to veterantalkshow.com/resources. This show is hosted, produced, and edited by Ryan Smeltz. Our co-host is Joe Ballack, and a guest starring veterans.